So, conspiracy theories, lies, and unexplained mysteries. It's time for some more of that, all right? But before we get to it, we got to unplug some more people out of the matrix, man. And you do that by hitting the like button and then going to the comment section and putting hashtag unplug. That's it. And if you're new, somewhere down there is a subscribe button. Go ahead and hit that for me, all right? With that being said, let's get to the craziness. Here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to Banfield. I'm Brian Enton filling in for Ashley this week. And tonight we have a special hour for you on a topic that has really captured the nation's imagination and also even now the attention of Congress. Ever since a U.S. Air Force officer named David Griss made shocking claims that the government was hiding a secret UFO retrieval program, the search for answers, it feels like it is suddenly now at warp speed. And we've really been at the forefront of all of this here at News Nation. We've had a couple of exclusives just in the last week. Tonight, though, all eyes are on Roswell, New Mexico. We are going to go there live in just a few minutes. And there are tens of thousands of true believers there to mark the 76th anniversary of the most famous alleged UFO crash and cover-up of all times. You've probably seen that picture there. Very, very interesting story. We're going to go to a hangar there. We're going to go to that hangar live that was at the forefront of the investigation, plus to one of the places that we are told some of
on the screen it says, "We're all space cadets. The X-Files EP on humans. Fascination with other worlds." I feel like we're in an episode of X-Files or something similar to that. You know what I mean? I just feel like that.
That was at the forefront of the investigation, plus to one of the places that we are told some of the debris was actually found, a place that hasn't been in the news much, and we've got new video of that place. And then in a world of AI and Photoshop, how can you believe anything you see these days, especially when it comes to these UFO photos? Two leading UFO investigators will help us break down fact versus fiction, because as serious as so much of this is, and we have learned that over the last month, I mean, this has become real news, there are also fake photos out there. How they are able to decipher between the two, I'm going to ask and really dig into that coming up, because again, there are fakes and you have to know how to tell the difference. Plus, a former executive producer of The X-Files weighs in on what the fascination in the unexplained means for the human race. That show really had a lot to do with drumming up people's interest. I can't believe it's now been 30 years since that show started, which is hard to believe. We've got all of that coming up in the next hour. But first, one of the most famous of the alleged crashes of a UFO happened near Roswell, New Mexico. It was 1947. A rancher named W.W. Mac Brazel found unusual debris scattered across his property. That's all fact. That really happened. When it was reported to the Roswell Army Airfield, officials called the debris a flying disc. That's how it initially came out, a flying disc, but they quickly walked that back. Then eyewitnesses' claims of alien bodies being taken from the site emerged, and soon accusations of a government cover-up and conspiracy. They were rampant, with flying saucers to spy craft, to eventually they were calling all of this weather balloons. Well, tonight we have brand new details about a possible second debris field from that 1947 crash, and this is video that you're looking at it right now. Before we get to that, I want to bring in News Nation correspondent Nancy Liu. She is live tonight in Roswell, New Mexico, where UFO enthusiasts are converging in that city this time of year, the big conference. I see you outside the hangar, Nancy. I texted you.
Wait. They got a whole conference going on there? Y'all knew about that? Because I sure didn't know that there was a conference. Yo.
Earlier, I actually am jealous of this assignment. I have always wondered what it's really like there in Roswell, New Mexico, because you hear so much about it, and then you're there for the festival. Fill us in. How is it there tonight?
The vibe here is unmatched. This is the highlight of the year for Roswell, the annual UFO Festival. It kicks off tomorrow, and soon you will hear how this hangar ties in. The festival always means millions of dollars in revenue from thousands of visitors, and many of the humans converging on Roswell this weekend are believers.
We want to make sure that they know whose side we're on, so that explains it.
So you come in peace.
Yeah, we come in peace. Yeah, for
Wait,
sure.
This
what?
year, the usual fun of Roswell's UFO Festival seems to include far more believers than ever.
I really do believe that these aliens can actually live up in the skies, and I do believe that they do come down.
UFO Festival 2023 includes new topics for serious discussions of UFOs and aliens, all in the wake of claims by Pentagon whistleblower Dave Grush, who told News Nation exclusively of secret government retrieval programs.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
For decades, Roswell has been an epicenter for so-called UFOologists, a community that has grown since the 1947 Roswell incident. That crash of what was said to be a high-altitude military balloon sparked conspiracy theories due to evolving government explanations. Hoaxes and additional sightings and claims have added to the mystery.
When you have somebody like a whistleblower that says, hey, this did happen, this is the story, this is the evidence, I think it just excites more people that are true believers, or people who maybe were skeptics before, then now they have some validation.
With congressional UFO hearings now set to happen, there is new optimism for explanations and answers, especially since Senator Marco Rubio told News Nation that whistleblower Dave Grush is not alone.
I will say there are people that have come forward to share information with our committee over the last couple of years. I would imagine some of them are potentially some of the same people that perhaps he's referring to. I want to be very protective of these people. A lot of these people came to us even before these protections were in the law for whistleblowers to come forward.
Wow.
There has to be something out there other than just us.
And organizers...
That's my simple answer. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that I have or anybody has definitive proof or whatever it is. I'm just not naive to sit here and just stand on this hill by myself and say we're the only ones. We're the only ones. We're the only species out here. This universe, this galaxy, it's pretty big. I just can't stand on that hill and say that.
Say every report and alleged sighting always raises interest in Roswell and the UFO Festival, and that includes just last month that incident in Las Vegas that I covered of the alleged alien encounter by a family in their backyard, Brian.
Yeah, it looks like a windy night out there tonight in Roswell, Nancy. I'm curious, it looks like fun. It's obviously a festival. People are there to have a good time. But is there more of a serious vibe this year in light of the whistleblower coming forward and now Congress saying that they are actually going to investigate?
Absolutely. I talked to quite a few people around town today. Many of them kind of conveyed a sense of vindication, kind of like, I knew it. I mean, that they've always been believers and they've always thought that there's something that's being covered up that we're not being told about. So yes, the majority of people I talked to, in fact, all of the people I talked to today, are believers, and they believe that there's been a major cover-up.
I've always wondered, like, is everything UFO themed there? Because I know when you drive into town, there's that big UFO on the sign. But
right.
like, is it a cool little town?
Absolutely, yeah. There are aliens all over the place. There's a great mural with a spaceship, and yeah, everywhere you go, there are alien images and spaceships, and there's a great mural where you can step on a spot and wait to be beamed up. And I waited for a while and didn't get beamed.
Yeah, and look, I get that it's fun. It's a festival, Nancy, but obviously there are some serious allegations right now, and it's become a very serious matter in the last month or so. Nancy Liu, thank you so much. We appreciate your report tonight. In 1994, as we were mentioning, the Air Force published a report to try and put the famous Roswell incident to bed once and for all. It's a report our UFO whistleblower David Grush was asked about. He's read. He has had a few choice words about that report. He spoke about it during his interview with us. We want to remind you of that moment.
What can you tell me about the Roswell craft?
Fortunately, those details were not approved for me to talk about right now. That analysis I did was a total hack job, and even anybody with analytical skills, if you read it, you can deduce that they're conflating multiple situations with crash test dummies and mogul balloons, and they're just saying that the townsfolk who personally witnessed it were totally imagining things. They concocted that whole report just to disinform.
So the reason for the secrecy exactly is what?
Feudalistic dominance, who can have both asymmetric technology for, it seems like, just fueling the war machine.
It just read ridiculous to me that the US Air Force had changed its story.
Yeah, and they added additional elements over time and tried to conflate additional programs to explain some of the events.
Yeah, and that picture you see right there keeps coming up where they're showing the pieces of whatever they found. Interesting that David Griss called it a hack job.
It's like sometimes you just you just be like, I can't even believe my ears is hearing this. I just can't believe I'm hearing what I'm hearing.
Apparently familiar with the reports. He wasn't able to go into details. Obviously, he had this top security clearance. So when we asked for details about what happened in Roswell and also some of the other specifics, he wasn't able to elaborate. Tonight in a News Nation exclusive, there are new details actually on a second debris and recovery field now coming to light. There was a first debris field that was found, and now they've actually found a second debris field. You can see there's some drone video of it right there. It's actually out on a ranch quite a ways outside of Roswell. I'm told there's no cell phone service out there. All of this allegedly happening in the 1940s, but you still have these UFO investigators that go out there, especially this time of year with the festival happening. They travel out. They have metal detectors, and they go out in groups and they try to find debris that may still be out there or any kind of remnants. Among those investigators joining me now, Don Schmidt. He is lead investigator for the International UFO Museum and Research Center and a leading authority on the Roswell incident. And also Ben Hansen with us tonight, a friend of the show, of course, and host of UFO Witness on Discovery Plus. Yeah, we hear you guys. Sorry, they were just getting set up there outside the hangar after Nancy's report. Ben and Don, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I know you've had a busy day. I've been tracking what you guys have been doing. I want to start with you, Don, and dive right in. What can you tell us, Don, about this second debris field, where it is in proximity to the first debris field that was found, and if there's any new information involving the second debris field?
Well, it's actually a impact site. That's in fact what we call it. The remains of a egg-shaped pod about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, based on all the eyewitness accounts, including military and civilian, describe this location about 35 to 40 miles north of Roswell. And it's where this pod and its crew, a number of bodies, and a survivor based on, again, first-hand testimony were recovered back at the time of the incident.
Ben, when you go out to these sites, when you went out to this second debris field, as it's been called, I mean, what can you do now since it's been so long? How do the metal detectors work? Sort of walk us through the process when you and the other investigators go out there.
Well, it's actually been really exciting for us because I've been out now about 3 or 4 times to the site, which is near Corona. That's about 2.5 hours out from Roswell, the actual, what we call the debris field. The new site, though, like Don says, is kind of the impact site, which is only about 40 minutes outside the city. And we go out there, we try to systematically, see from Corona in towards town what kind of direction it may have been going, and therefore where we want to focus on the scope of the ground search. We had a backhoe, we had several people doing kind of grid searches. We don't even know if this material is metallic. So that's a big problem, right? So as we're searching anything that looks anomalous, we take that, we mark it just like you'd be, doing a crime scene investigation, and then we go get it analyzed to see if anything, shows up that would be not even just necessarily exotic material, but something that could have been made here but seems out of place. I mean, we're looking at every possible option right now.
Don, has anything of interest been found out there? I mean, I would have to think, if the reports are true that something crashed out there and the government was involved, I would have assumed that they would have gotten everything back then. I mean, are there still items to be found, do you think?
Well, we would not be wasting time if we didn't feel that we could make at least certain confirmations. We certainly have plans to return back to the debris field, and mainly because there were traces, elements, artifacts that were discovered for decades thereafter. And that was an area that covered almost a mile long in scope. And as a result, as any crash investigator would tell you, that there's absolutely no way that they could possibly recover every last piece of evidence.
Like he said, it's just like a crime scene. No criminal is gonna account for everything. That's why when the investigators come in, they make sure they canvass that area with a fine-tooth comb. You know what I mean? Because there's no possible way for them to take everything away from the scene to where it doesn't leave no trace of them and where they can't get discovered. So I agree with him, man. You probably still finding stuff from crash sites out there.
And so with the constant wind and rain erosion, that things come to the surface. And as a result, the Air Force has been out there for decades as well. In fact, the ranchers would confirm that they have been catching Air Force officers out there, even into recent times, still searching and making sure that every last piece was recovered.
Ben, I would imagine a lot of the people who may have been witnesses back in the 40s have now passed away because it's been so long. Is there anyone still alive? I mean, is someone documenting what they said? Because obviously it's going to be more difficult to investigate now without, you know, people who survived.
Well, that's a great question. In fact, what I guess you could say kind of sold me on Roswell that something happened here was the first book that I ever read that was authored by Don here. And when I saw the number of witnesses, hundreds, both firsthand and secondhand, that came forward, I wanted to know, is there anyone still alive I could talk to? And I had the chance to interview someone who was a child at the time who handled the material. Her dad was with the fire department, brought it home. She handled it there at the kitchen table. And in a matter of time, the military police came over and actually threatened her with her life. And when she retold this story to me, she's now passed, but she was in tears, and you could see the emotion that she legitimately felt, that she thought she was going to be removed from her family and killed if she ever talked about this. So I had another witness, the son of someone who, again, problem is they passed away, but they have affidavits from so many of these people whose father was part of what they call the Air War College that happened the next spring. And he was invited out to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where we know a lot of this material went. Anyways, he handled the debris from Roswell and told his sons right before he passed away that he saw bodies. And one of them actually was still alive. It was not human-like, but not human. And that they were asked to kind of weigh in on what they should do with the situation. So I think when you put all these together, it makes a really good case that why would people, even though they're passed now, on their deathbeds, make these confessions to their own children, and some of them have so much emotion and traumatized by it yet, you know, today.
When you talk about bodies, I mean, it's hard to process. It's honestly hard to believe. But I go back to David Grush, the whistleblower who we interviewed here on News Nation, who is a high-level intelligence officer, had top security clearance. It's now been weeks. No one has discredited him. There are now official investigations in Congress. We had Senator Rubio just a few nights ago saying that other whistleblowers with firsthand knowledge of these kinds of incidents have come forward. I'm curious, Don, because you've been doing this a long time. Do you think this is a moment that we're in? I mean, do you think that we're actually going to start to get real concrete information from the government about this stuff?
Yeah.
My biggest regret when we worked with the late Congressman Stephen Schiff of New Mexico back in the early to mid-90s, when a good many of the first-hand witnesses were still with us here at Roswell. And we couldn't get Washington to pay any attention. And how unfortunate that all those witnesses are now long gone. And so we missed a golden opportunity, because Roswell's the one case not only being the...
That's the thing. Did we miss the golden opportunity, or was that their plan all along? Let's wait them out. See, can we wait them out? Might have been a crazy plan for them at the time, but look how it worked out for them.
The granddaddy of them all. The fact that it's beyond just a sighting or gun camera footage or a landing where it's something very fleeting. With Roswell, it's clearly a case of show us the bodies. And these witnesses are gone. So we're having to rely on the very arbiters of the cover-up, and that being the Pentagon, to now roll over and say, well, now we're going to finally cooperate. When they have been the ones that have been running out the clock, stalling for time all these decades. And I can't emphasize enough, we need to keep in mind that the Pentagon is up to 4 official explanations regarding Roswell. 4. I mean, none of us could get away with that in any other circumstances, but here, once again, the government, well, what do we expect? But we have to focus on where all the eyewitnesses have taken us, and they have taken us to that very first explanation, and that was that this was the recovery of an actual flying saucer.
Ben, you know, the festival is this weekend. A lot of it seems like fun and games, and there's the funny cartoons and people dress up and all that, and they have fun with it. I mean, do you think that that confuses people because it sort of makes it into a game when at the same time, you know, we hear from Don and now we hear from the whistleblower and even Marco Rubio and other lawmakers who are trying to take this matter seriously. Do you think the festival in any way sort of gets in the way of that?
It's kind of a double-edged sword, to be honest, Brian. It's because without that, there may not be an interest at all for people to come and to pick up a book and actually read about it. But at the same time, the legitimate research, I find that, especially, you know, the generations today, they browse or graze information. They don't really dive into it. And that is frustrating because, like I said, what introduced me to it was reading a book and reading the actual witness testimonies. And if you put that together, I think it's overwhelming for people to just say it was something prosaic. So I embrace both of it. I like having fun, you know, the costumes and everything, but I think you're seeing that tone sort of change, especially with the media now and the little jokes and the jabs about little green, you know, men and things like that. A lot of that might be psychologically based on fear, you know, and that we just are uncomfortable. And now that this is starting to come to light, how do we deal with this, you know, what I call a global reality compromising moment? You know, we might start seeing some things in people's lives have to change, and how do you deal with that? So it's a long conversation, but I think it's necessary because humor, you know, can help us get through that.
Yeah, it certainly seems like we're entering a more sort of serious time and serious phase of all of this. Ben and Don, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it's a busy time of the year there, and you guys were busy today investigating, so thank you for making time for us tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, moving on. If none of these sightings and reports of alien encounters has you convinced, and I get it, there's a lot of people out there. It's a lot, you know, it's a lot. That is okay. You're really not alone. It's not easy to point to one photo or video and call it proof of visitors from out there, especially with all the technology these days, and people can alter these photos. Up next, you'll see pictures regarded as some of the clearest evidence. The pictures that have really in many ways been verified. There's only a few of them that people say actually could be something. We're going to show you those photos. We're going to walk you through them. That's coming up right after the break. All right, it may be the summer of Roswell in New Mexico, but for people who track unexplained sightings and reports of mysterious visitors, it was definitely the spring of Las Vegas. Remember, it was the last night of April when a family in Vegas called police after seeing and hearing a crash and described what they called very tall, shiny non-humans. A police body camera captured a streak of light across the sky that night. But that and the family's account of what happened are the only things in the evidence column for Vegas sighting 2023. There wasn't much more. I want to bring in James Fox. He's a longtime UFO.
And they hadn't gone silent, like nobody could find him. I wonder what's the update on them.
Investigator and producer of two highly regarded films on the subject, The Phenomenon and Moment of Contact. James, thanks for being with us. First of all, what do you make of the Vegas incident? You know, it was reported on quite a bit. Police initially said it wasn't a hoax in terms of the 911 call, but we haven't really seen a lot of other evidence come out of it.
I initially was rather excited about it. But as I dug a little deeper, I found the gentleman's testimony of the beings and the big mouths and super tall. And then the imprints in the backyard, to me, looked like a little scuff mark with someone's shoe. Wasn't particularly impressive. You hear the impact site, the alleged impact site, and it's fairly significant. If something did in fact hit the ground, it would have left a lot more than just a little circular scuff mark. And the fact that I got directly in touch with George Knapp, who's been reporting on UFOs in Las Vegas for decades, and he said that he had made a number of attempts to speak directly with the family. They initially had agreed, and then they never answered their door on 3 different occasions.
Yeah, I think the same thing sort of happened with the media, I think, in terms of trying to talk with them quite a bit. I want to go through, because there's been so many videos and photos over the years, especially it seems like lately, a lot of it gets debunked. I want to go through sort of the top 3 photos that seem the most credible. I know the first one is from McMinnville, Oregon from 1950. Just kind of walk me through these photos and what makes them so credible in your eyes.
So a lot of people say there's just a lack of, I just heard Michael Shermer, the skeptic, say it's always a friend of a friend who saw something, or the friend saw something, and it's anecdotal. But, you know, dating back to the late 40s and early 50s, case in point, McMinnville, Oregon, in 1950, 2 witnesses, Evelyn and her husband, Paul Trent, saw this disc-shaped object hovering over their garden. And Paul grabbed his camera and snapped off 2 or 3 really good shots. Those photographs have been analyzed to death, including part of Project Condon and Blue Book, and there was never determination that they were bogus. They were authentic, broad daylight, points of reference, multiple eyewitness, photographs of what appears to be a...
Yeah, wasn't no Photoshop back then.
Those look clear. I don't want to rush you, but we only have about a minute left, so I want to get to the other photos. Tell me about 1965 Santa Ana, California.
It was a highway worker by the name of Rex Heflin. He was identifying potential hazards in the road. He had a camera with him, a Polaroid camera, and he snapped off 3 or 4 shots of a disc-shaped craft.
That's a good
shot. Those 2 have never been debunked. He maintained his story till his death, and they're very good broad daylight points of reference, again, photographs.
And what about 1990, the photo from Scotland?
So those photographs I heard about in the late 90s. I interviewed Nick Pope, who investigated UFOs in an official capacity for the Ministry of Defense. And I said, what were some of the best cases? And without hesitation,
that's another good shot
case that took place in Scotland. But there were 2 witnesses. They took 6 photographs. The object was hovering stationary in the sky for some period of time before a Harrier jet went round it. And then when it took off vertically and at a tremendous high rate of speed, according to the witnesses. And there were 6 photographs taken. The MOD took over the investigation. The 2 witnesses wanted the case publicized, but the MOD took over, confiscated the original photographs, confiscated the original negatives, and this never saw the light of day until just recently. David Clark, seen in that photograph here, did an extensive amount of research, found this guy who was part of the RAF, Craig Lindsay, and he had kept 1 print, and that's an original print.
Interesting.
One of the photographs.
You almost have to wonder sometimes if the older photos are in some ways more credible because it was like before technology had advanced.
Photoshop,
you could get in your computer
Photoshop.
And Photoshop and that kind of a
Yep.
thing. So interesting to see those 3 photos specifically. James Fox, thank you so much for breaking it all down for us. We appreciate it.
Not a new email hack by China. Overnight, Microsoft revealed that a Chinese hacking organization broke into the email for 25 major organizations, including government agencies. Trevor Alt is tracking the latest. Good morning, Trevor.
Good morning, George. A very alarming announcement from Microsoft. They say this started in May, and while they didn't specify which organizations were hit, they have revealed some of them, as you said, are government agencies. And Microsoft says the group behind this is known as Storm 0558. The company claims this is a spy agency that's based in China, and we're told Storm gained access to these organizations' emails by getting into individual accounts. And what that means is at this point, it's not clear how much data or information they were actually able to access. Now, Microsoft says the threat has since been completely mitigated. They've added new automated systems to detect these kinds of hacks, but they say cyber attacks are becoming much more common and a lot more sophisticated, and any individual could be targeted.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here.
Man. And all this technology just keeps funneling down to us, man, and everything it just makes you nervous. You know what I mean? And then you got some of the older people talking about, I told y'all. Yeah, we know. You told us. We know. It's part of the game. We got to deal with it. We just got to keep figuring it out, man. You know what I mean? But man, some of the stuff we done caught today, bro. Woo! Man, it make your head spin. Telling y'all, man, this alien stuff and UFO stuff and UAP stuff is ramping up. Which side of the line are y'all on? Y'all get at me in the comment section and let me know, man. Leave a like, share the video, and subscribe if you're new, and stick around and stay tuned till the next one. I'm gone. Peace.